Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. What's Adam up to today? Well, we're working on 32 gas tanks. This 1932 Ford, sorry about the mess, I got a million projects on the go, but anyway, I just stuck this here in the shop and wanted to get the fuel tank swapped out. I thought it'd be an easy thing. This car was restored in 1991, basically sat since 95. And when you have something sitting around with old gas in it, sometimes you can have a bit of a problem. So this black gas tank here, door number 1, will show you, it's pretty rusty. I don't know how well you can see that. I guess it wants to focus right on the neck. But anyway, you get the idea. It's rusty inside. It smells really bad. You're lucky you can't smell it. And, you know, possibly we can clean this tank and wash it out with something. Maybe I've used muriatic acid in the past, and maybe coat it with those gas tank kits. But I thought I'd take the easy way out and just swap the tank, since I had a couple, because I have a couple cars on the go here. So I just thought I'd put a new tank on. You know, we've all changed gas tanks on cars, or, well, a lot of us have, and if you haven't, it's usually pretty straightforward. And so I was running into problems and weird things, and sometimes I wonder if it's just me or what I'm doing. But I read a little bit on the internet and found that lots of people seem to come up with problems with these tanks and sending units and things like that. So for original guys and street rod guys, some of this stuff will apply to you and some of it won't. So in this case here, this tank is the one that was on the car. And I don't know if it's original or not. Who knows? Anyway, the original sending unit for the original gas gauge works on a pressure tube. This little tube here. And it has this funny sending unit with these little cups. There's no electrics in it at all. So you can actually see how the fuel... Now I scrubbed this a little bit with the brush and took all the flaky stuff off. But you can see how the fuel level sat right under that bottom cup where that black line was, and then it separated and it got more corroded down towards the bottom. Maybe I'll insert a photo right about here of where it what it looked like before I scrubbed it off. Anyway, so that's an original sending unit, and it has 6 holes in it. And anyway, this was in here. So this fits in this tank. Fits in like that, and it has this nice support here, this lip right here, bolts on there so you can get at the fittings. There's actually an access in the floor if you wanted. I didn't pull the back seat out, I just worked on it from the bottom. And this is how it was. Went in with the original 6 bolts. So just assuming, I thought I'd just get a new sending unit to go with the tank, and I can't seem to find an original type sending unit. It seems that, well, at closer look, at first when I pulled it out, it was really rotten, but it actually looks like it's going to be okay. I'm going to put it in an ultrasonic cleaner, make sure it's clean, but it's actually made out of brass, and it's in, from what I could tell so far, in good condition. So maybe that's why they don't make new ones. And it seems that nobody uses the old style original type gauge. When I mean nobody, I'm being very generic here, that it seems that a lot of these cars get street rotted and people use an electric Stuart Warner style gauge. But anyway, back to the problem here. So this is what this tank had, 6 holes. And then this tank here is from Tanks. Okay, looks really nice. Nice finish on it, nice coating, looks nice. So the first problem is, for an original car, you have, there's 5 holes here, which fits the standard common electric sending unit. And then it came with this really nice pickup tube, which you need to cut the tubes the proper length, cut them on a 45. So this would drop down in there, but you need to cut the tubes. So that's really good if you're doing something not original. And you put in your sending unit to match your aftermarket gauge of whatever sort you have. So in this case, I want to use it on an original car. So I don't need this. And I want to put this in. Well, it doesn't line up. The holes don't line up. There's only one hole, and if you use that one, and I marked it out because I was going to drill, I was thinking of drilling and tapping new holes. So you have, I got the marks there. This one's going to be a little awkward. This one, and this one. And these holes here, they're spot welds because there's a retaining, an extra ring in here so you can thread it, and gives it a little extra meat. So that's what these marks are. But the sending unit doesn't really cover up all of these holes. So I thought about welding them or maybe putting a bolt in and peening it over or something like that. And I don't really want to be pounding on the top of this because I like to keep it flat so the gasket surface is okay. And I didn't really want to weld on it because I don't want to grind off this nice coating where I don't have to. So I have another plan. I think I'm going to move the sending unit over here, which you will find they do sell adapters for that. That's not an uncommon thing. On the 32 to 35 Fords, they use the pressure type gauge. And there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, and then in 1936, they went to an electric, as far as I can tell. And they make an adapter to fit this. But in this case, if you put the adapter on the right spot, this would interfere. There's bumps on the bottom here and stuff like that. You have to get massaging it, and it would probably work. I'm going to come up with a different design. I'm going to make an adapter to move this forward and offset it, because there's the other issue here is this weld is out pretty far from the tank, and if I had put it in the stock spot, which we already determined is not going to work, it's kind of hard to get a bolt in there because it's right on the weld. But offsetting it over here, I got some meat there to put a bolt through, and I'm going to be able to make it work, and have to mess with the fuel line a little bit. This one has been, on my car, has been cut, and it has a rubber line with a filter in it, and so I'll just make the line a little bit longer, fit on here, and I'll put an extension on the line here. So that's how I'm going to fix this, and I just come up with that. It took me a little more thought than just saying it here, running through my head of all the other options. But let's compare these tanks. So as you can see, this is the tank out of the car. It only has the one hole. But then I start to wonder, it's actually got filler or something in here. I don't know. I didn't grind it off. Oh, that smells bad. Anyway, who knows what this is? And you kind of assume maybe it's an original tank. But I learned a couple more things here that I'm going to share with you. So you can see the end of this tank looks the same as this one. Pretty close. But then this one has these braces on it. So this is a Vintiques tank. And it's different again. It has the 5-hole sender for the later electric one. And then it has this one pickup tube over on this side. So you can see there's a difference. This one has this cutout, but this cutout is covered by the body. You don't see it. It slips up underneath. There's no issue with that hanging out. This Vintiques tank, you can see they moved the weld in. It's pretty close to this groove, so they had room to put the holes in, where this tank doesn't have that. So if you had the choice, you start leaning towards this Vintique tank. Well, from what I can tell, the original tanks had this brace on it, and I read that you can buy that brace and weld it on the tank's tank, but you kind of mess up the coating and whatever. I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, and you probably sand most of it off. But anyway, that's some of the things there. So I decide, well, maybe I'll try this tank. So I go to sit that in the frame, and the bolt holes don't line up. It's actually narrow. It's too narrow compared to these two. This is narrower where I'd actually have to slot what's little bit of this. I'd have to slot, sorry, this hole and this one and the one in the frame right to the edge of the frame to get this tank to fit. So it mounts with 3 bolts. You'll use 1 on this side and 2 on the left side, and that's to help with flex and not to break the tank. And that's Henry Ford designed it that way. Well, anyway, so that's some of the differences there. And then we go to this tank that I bought. Didn't really look at it. The fella said it was original tank, and you're like, well, original tank, it's got 2 holes in it. Well, looks like here they broke some screws off and tried to get them out. And then this one here, somebody's put this in. They must have put an electric sender in. That hole's all cut out rough. These holes are tapped just through the thin tank, and they must have changed their mind where they were going to put that one. But again, the weld's close to the inside, and it has the holes there for support. And it does have these brackets. So it looks like the original tank had 1 hole, these brackets, the weld close to the inside edge, and the hole here for the support. So that's looking good. Now, another thing that I ran into, make sure you test fit all of this type of stuff before you get anything painted. So I was going to have this painted tomorrow morning, and well, I was going to take it today, but I was procrastinating on it because I wasn't sure what I was going to do here. And I'm trying to pressure myself to get it done instead of procrastinating. So I committed to take it to the paint shop tomorrow. And I got so many things going on. I just want to delegate something. So I just want to make sure this tank fit in the car. And it didn't. It required grinding right here. So it would not fit in the frame rails right here. It was hitting on both sides, which seems to be a common issue. And this tank had lots of clearance because it's too narrow. But this one, a little bit of trimming. So you can see they got a little bit extra meat outside the weld down here. But anyway, I clearanced that on both sides. And then you're like, okay, well, that's good. Well, then putting it in the frame, it just wouldn't line up with the holes. When you just push it in the last little bit, the front of the tank towards the front of the car would just raise up off the frame ever so slightly. So then I looked, and this lip here was actually hitting on the cross member and raising the tank up when you shove it in. So I took it off. I worked this a little bit, but because of the compound curves here, it gets a little wonky. It's not that I just hit it right there with the hammer. I worked it all the way along here, but the material's got to go somewhere, so it just kinked up a little bit. Again, you'll never see it. It's up above the cross member. It looks like a bit of a hack show, but I did what I could. Just used a rubber mallet and so a dead blow hammer and knocked it up there. And now it slides right in the frame, no problem. So the tank looks like it's going to work for me. I'm going to have to figure out a way to, moving it over here, there's a little bit extra room to put the bolt hole through. Because you don't want to drill or cut inside this weld, because it's going to leak if you drill it here. But there's some room here. I can drill it on the outside. So there, you think you're good. But then on this tank's tank, they didn't put a drain on it. They have the bump where it could go, but there's no drain. It's not a deal killer. A lot of cars don't have a drain, but it's kind of nice for a car that doesn't get used, or if you want to work on it or change something, it is kind of a treat. I believe, yep, this one has the drain, and the 2 other tanks have one as well. But that's not where it ends. When you're test fitting it, so I have put the tank in place, and with this massaged, the bolts line up, it sits flat on the frame, it sits nice. The last thing you want to do is fit the frame horn cover. Now, obviously, I can sit it wherever, but when I had it on the car, you want to make sure that when it's tight against the frame and bolted against the fender, that this clearance for the neck right in here isn't going to be too far off or touch or make it not fit. So just one more thing to check, because what you really don't want is to have everything painted and then have parts not fit. So that's some of the issues I come up with that I thought I'd share with you. Maybe I forgot the odd thing, but I had 4 tanks here to compare. You don't always have that in your garage, so you can kind of choose what you want to do. From what I read, sometimes these necks can be in the wrong spot, so that's why you really want to check this cover on a full fendered car, on a highboy or something with the body, with the fenders taken off it. You're not going to run those. So another decision I made is I'm building a roadster, highboy roadster with no fenders on it. And so in this case, not having these triangle brackets on here on the 4-door sedan with full fenders, this gets covered up by the frame covers anyway. So you won't see them, you won't see them not there. So if you're trying to go for an original look, they're covered up anyway. But on a highboy with the covers off, I want to have this bracket on here. And on that car, well, I guess I'll grind the frame a little bit and use this tank. The other issue you can have is this tank here was really tight on the body when I pulled it out, and this one wasn't. So there's a little bit of difference in height there, but you want to make sure that it's going to go on and not jam up and cause an issue. So I'll just take you back. Sorry about the parts on here. What a mess. Everything's a mess. But so here's where the 3 bolts go, and the tank sits on top of the frame. Some people say it sits on the bottom lip. Some people goes under here. It sits on top. This one was on top. Everything fit together. And then where it was hitting on the cross member, right in here. So you have to get underneath. And this is with a stock cross member. So if you put a flattened cross member in or something different, then you just have to make sure it's not going to interfere with the tank. And yeah, that's where we're at. So if you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. You know, this thing needs a little bit of tinkering all over. So plan is another step forward on this car. So I'll take the tank in for paint tomorrow, bring it back, modify the lines, and I got to machine up an adapter. So I'm going to make the adapter, the offset adapter, to put the original sending unit in this hole, and I'll make a cover with a gasket to cover that one up. And then I don't have to weld, grind, or anything on the tank. And then down the road, if someone wanted to change it again, well, you could say, well, it'd be easy, the part's already made, but maybe the tank would come like this. So again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more on this 32, let me know if there's something you want to see in specifically. Anyway, I guess I rambled on enough. Have a good day. Thanks for stopping by.